Babylights that we want to get into. Alright, so Babylights with a balayage. What this was made for is to actually mimic children's hair. So have you guys had a client like say, I just love my daughter's hair, look at it, or you thought that about your own daughter? You know how it is when they have that beautiful hair, especially in the summertime, where it's just got these like little shimmers of color, and then it's always a little bit lighter at the bottom because this is older hair and it's seen more sun. So that's what this is supposed to look like. So there's going to be a lot of things that we need to keep in mind when we are choosing our strength of our lightener. Okay. So the placement is where we have a mohawk section in the top that just extends back to the crown, and that just depends on wherever they part their hair. So if they part their hair kind of in the middle, you can just do it right in the middle. If they part it to one side or the other, we can do it to the side. Section her out for you guys. So, let's talk about, like, you guys are probably picturing those girls that you know, the kids that you have, or little girls that you know that have that hair that looks kind of like what we're talking about. Is it a lot of contrast where the Babylights are close to the scalp? Do you feel like no, it's not. So depending on their starting level, so if they are naturally a level 8, they might have platinum blonde natural highlights, right?
Right.
But if they're only a level 6, their natural highlights are maybe gonna only be an 8, maybe a 9. So we want these Babylights to stay within 2 to 3 levels lighter than their natural base. Okay? So then we're gonna take our sides, and that's just sectioning to the back of the ear like that. You guys have probably done a placement just like this before. So the placement we've probably seen before, the sectioning we've seen before, but the placement is a little bit different. So we're gonna be working in all diagonal back sections. So do you guys know how you actually figure out diagonal forward and diagonal back? No? So what I was taught,
to the head.
where the ear connects to the head.
Oh, I feel like I just learned that
So what is that, how does that show you?
So, okay, there's a flat foot, you take your comb, there's a flat foot on the head,
Uh-huh.
and it always
From
lines
the
up with
parietal
where the
ridge or
ear
whatever.
attaches to the head.
Oh, okay, so you're talking
Yeah.
about the side and the back, the difference between the side
Oh,
and the back.
okay, what do you?
No, that's good, that is good. So diagonal forward lines. So if you picture a marble, so picture I have a little marble on this. So if the marble is gonna fall forward, that's diagonal forward. If it's gonna fall back, that's diagonal back.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, front or back, yeah.
Yes, picture a little marble.
Yep.
Okay, so then we just section the back 2 sides out. And that would be our sectioning. Oh, she's got some short ones down there, okay.
She's playing.
Okay.
She's growing out her under.
So we can kind of all see that, right? Let me just get my apron on. So, this is gonna be basically a microwave, right? So this is something that now has been around forever. We've all heard of a microwave, but it's now a trend. So it's been given a different name, calling it Babylights. So you might see some of your clients asking for this, and basically we already know how to do it. So I'm gonna show you guys. We're gonna be using the Flash Lift Lightener, and so I kind of started to say earlier that we wanna think about our choice of developer. So if we have microfine weave stitches, see on the picture down there, that's what it should look like. What is gonna be happening?
It's gonna blend in soft.
Blend in really soft, yeah. Did I hear
It's gonna
something else?
take you longer to do the sectioning, so you might have to change the level of developer when you get to the other sections in the back.
Yes,
Or
awesome.
wherever you're
Or wherever
starting.
you're ending up with, yes. So it's gonna take you a little bit longer. So if I'm doing this on a client specifically, I definitely charge more than just a regular foil. Because it's gonna take me longer to do, and they're also gonna have lower maintenance. So because I'm taking the time to do a specialized technique of a super fine micro stitch that's gonna grow out really softly and they're not gonna have to come in every 6 weeks, that should be a higher price service, okay? Because it's more value for the service because it's lasting them longer. So so it's gonna take us longer, but what happens to a tiny, tiny bit of hair that's in a foil?
As I say,
Lifts
this
really
is
fast.
faster.
Lifts really fast. And we want this to look natural and we don't want it to lift that length, right? So when I'm gonna do a Babylights technique, I usually start with 10 volume, to be honest, because I know that I have a lot of foils to do, and then I also have to go in and balayage the ends. So we're gonna show that later too. So 10 volume and maybe even our Blonde Dimensions lightener, but I'm using Flash Shift just for today. That's what we had. So I feel like it doesn't look as natural to do the Babylights all the way down in the nape, right? That's typically darker, the sun isn't seen there, so I like to start it about halfway up and doing more of a partial.
That just answered.
Good. Okay, so if we have a section like this that is a little bit wide, too wide for one foil, then we would want to actually do 2 foils, okay? And the other way that we do the Babylights is instead of taking a slice and then weaving that out, which takes twice as long, right? Because I'm doing 2 movements. We can actually just hold the hair. Can everybody see? Yeah. Hold the hair with tension and then just skim the surface. You guys see that? So by just skimming, let me grab one more right there. That's saving me time because I don't have to take my slice and then weave it out. Okay, so another thing to think about is we could just use lightener and start with 10 volume, but we could also use high lift color. So if they have virgin hair, I love to use high lift for this technique because in the back, we don't want this to lift too light, right? Naturally, the back is seeing the least amount of sun. So I would maybe grab Blonde Idol, depending on what her starting level was. I could use a P or the AP or the T with a 30 or 40 volume and use that all through the back. Hold that. And then when I get to the sides, which will show you guys in a little bit, I could alternate high lift and lightener in the sides. And then what do you think we would do in the top? Just lightener.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really pretty because you don't have to worry about it looking too, let's redo that one, too bright or too unnatural underneath here and in this crown area, because all this hair is gonna fall over that too, right? So think about the hair that sees the most sun, we wanna have that be the brightest, and then the hair that doesn't see the most sun, we can have a little bit of brightness, but not as much as the top. And then also, when we're using a high lift, we don't have to worry that it's accidentally lifting too many shades lighter than we want. Okay, and then, do you guys think that we should be putting these foils super close together in the back? No, right? Because we want it to look really natural. And naturally, if we did a back-to-back highlight, then it's not gonna look natural anymore. So we could keep them about like an inch, 3/4 to an inch apart. Can maybe start, this is getting a little bit narrower, so I can maybe do this in one foil. You just don't wanna do our our foil, if we're dealing with the curve of the head, then we can't just put one foil if the head is rounding, because then the foil's not gonna be tight in that entire section, right? Okay, so I'll do this one for you guys. And then do you guys also see when I put my initial lay down of lightener, I start about an inch down. Then I go in and turn my brush sideways and feather it up at the top.
So you're not like smushing all the product at the
Exactly.
getting like.
So if I had a bunch of
bleed
color on my
through.
brush and I went right up there, what's that gonna wanna do?
Gonna make a line or it's gonna.
It'll push
Bleed
out.
out,
through.
bleed out, yeah. So lightener swells, especially by the scalp where we have heat. The lightener is gonna wanna puff up. Okay, so this is what you guys are actually gonna be doing. And this is why we're gonna be working in teams, because we'll work simultaneously on the head, and then we can get enough foils in so that you can actually see how we would then balayage when we're dealing with foils already being in the head. So, do one more back here, and then I can actually show you guys the balayage. This mannequin has definitely already had some highlights and stuff going on here. So do you guys see how like super, super fine that is? Like, you're not gonna see any little chunks anywhere. Yeah, if this ever goes too light, then you definitely wanna think about how you're gonna tone it back down. Because if she's, darker naturally, we don't want those, maybe not even blonde. Maybe we're only lifting them to a lighter brown. Or if they have some red tones in their hair, then we wanna keep the same tones of the Babylights. Okay. So then I wanna show you, so I got a few in the back there. So you're basically doing these all diagonal back, and then you're coming up to this point in the top, and you're gonna leave out that little triangle at the top, okay? And then we would repeat that on the other side. Then, let me show you how you do it when you get to the side. So a lot of us wanna highlight on the hairline like this, right? Parallel to the hairline. Do you guys do it like that?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. So what happens when you highlight like that and then they pull their hair back into a ponytail?
Stripey.
It can be stripey, and then we're gonna notice that grow out a lot quicker, right? So if we keep with our diagonal back. Remember the marble, so we're going this way, we're not going this way towards the face. Starting right there where there's a little point where their front hairline is. And then we always wanna make sure to pick up that first stitch that's on the hairline. Always pick up the first stitch on the hairline, because if they were naturally had these highlights from the sun, then they would have some lightness right on the hairline. So we said that we used our, we'll pretend that we used high lift in the back, and then we got to the front here. I would probably use the lightener as my first foil, maybe my first 2 to 3 foils even. Then start to alternate with my high lift. Also, I might wanna put my foils a little bit closer together, right? Because we did them a little further apart, now maybe we're only gonna be about a 1/2 inch apart. And then do you guys also see how I folded that foil really small? So the width of your section is how you wanna fold your foil to be that same width. So if this foil, if I didn't fold those edges in that tight, it's gonna be loose and it's gonna wanna slip out because we have a big amount of foil with only a little amount of hair. Okay? So basically, you guys pretty much get it. So we would follow like this, other side. Then when we get into the top, this is also what's a little bit different too. Turn her here. Okay, so she parts in the middle. So I could, is it off to one side at all? Can you guys see for me?
No, she's in the middle.
It's in the middle.
It's in the middle.
So we're gonna be starting in the front hairline, working diagonal, either going all the way this way or all the way this way. If she parts in the middle, you can just simply choose which side you wanna pick. If they part it to the side, you wanna start on the side that they part on. So on the shallow side, okay? Because where they part their hair is where it's gonna have the most lightness, right? So let's just start with this side. So see where the side meets the front hairline? So that's actually right where I'm gonna start. My first foil is gonna be right there. Okay? Weave that out like that.
And that's where
Then-
you would start if she was parting
On that side.
on that side,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Mhm. Yes. And so then maybe I could decide to do these really close together until I reach past the part line, and that's gonna give me
Okay.
a money piece,
Got it.
right? Then maybe go a little bit further apart as I move back. So your body positioning, I'm not saying this way because I'm teaching you guys, but you would actually be standing right here in front of her, okay? And you can just say like, I'm sorry, you're gonna have foils, you know, in your eyes for a little bit, but I'll move your hair out of the way once we're done. So once you come to the middle, so we're just gonna keep going all the way the same way.